While I have the privilege of calling myself as a lawyer, I actually wanted to be a chef. Unfortunately, I was the only one who was convinced of that. Neither was anyone in my family or the universe at large convinced.
If I have to ask you, what is that one small habit or your mental model which you've been following, which has been helping you stay calm and also succeed in your role as a GC? What would that be?
You have to do what is right. If that means saying no, so be it. If that means being unpopular, so be it. The responsibility practically really never ends. You are always a doctor on call, and you will need to have an elephantiac memory to be able to recall people, places, names, events, dates, and whatnot, right?
With so much of things happening around day to day life, what keeps you up at night?
The things that I don't know.
Anindya, hi, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Prime. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, it's our pleasure to have you, Anindya. I mean, you have such a vast experience. I'm sure the audience are gonna love today's show because they're gonna get wisdom which they haven't heard before. And I'm excited. I'm truly excited to talk to you.
Same here.
Lovely. So why don't we start and skip the normal form, the formal introduction, which anybody can go and go onto your LinkedIn and check. I want to understand, Anindya, when you look at a life sitting today, whoever you are today is because of certain things which have happened in your life, good or bad. I wanted to reflect upon those bad things or decisions or challenges or the failures which shaped you who you are today. Everybody talks about the good things. I want you to reflect on the bad ones today.
Well, Prank, I must say, you've started at a very, very philosophical note. So I won't expect anything less from you. But yes, you're absolutely right. While I have the privilege of calling myself as a lawyer, I actually wanted to be a chef.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, that's right. I actually wanted to be a chef. And as you very philosophically but correctly also mentioned, that it was one of those pivotal moments that did not work out, is what led to my starting off as a criminal lawyer, and then eventually, working my way up to Group General Counsel where I am right now. So, I mean, I'm from a family of non-lawyers. My
Mhm.
father was a government servant, and we obviously, like every other family, were trying to ensure that the kids in the family receive an excellent education. An excellent education in Kolkata typically meant studying in some of the private institutions, which I was privileged to do. But somewhere along the way, I felt that it would be a good idea for me to be a chef.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was the only one who was convinced of that. Neither was anyone in my family or the universe at large convinced. And I guess it's possibly a good idea that I did not become a chef and instead got to gray my hairs as a lawyer.
Lovely, lovely. So, coming from that phase where nobody was convinced when you wanted to become a chef versus uh, coming today where everybody had to actually get convinced when you say something in your in-house role as lawyers, how does this transformation happen? I want you to walk us through that and help us understand who you are as a person in your own way.
It's it was, is, and will remain a work in progress.
Mhm.
That's the short answer. But yes, eventually, I mean, when I did join the legal profession and I joined at a very junior level, just like everyone else, I joined the banking finance sector, stayed there for a while, stayed there for around 10 years, and it was a good 10 years. Uh, the landscape across the country began to change. E-com started making its way into our vocabulary, and we started hearing things like, startups and unicorns and valuations and things like that. And I realized that I was missing out on a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff which was exciting, a lot of
Mhm.
stuff which was unknown, and a lot of stuff which lawyers were still afraid of doing over there because they were not really sure that this is something that is hardcore law. It sounds very flashy, but it also sounds very gimmicky, right? These were still concepts that we were still struggling with. So I decided at that particular point of time that it's worth the risk to transition into something of a tech lawyer and try to work with different e-commerce companies, different internet companies, and that's when I transitioned out of the banking finance industry. And to answer your question, it was a journey of a lot of patience, a lot of risks, a lot of faith that we don't know the answers right now, but we'll figure it out. And in the process, discovering what you don't want to get to
Okay.
what you eventually want.
And how fulfilling is this journey?
You see, hindsight is always 2020. So looking back, I can always say it's fulfilling. But when you're in the moment, there are some really, really risky decisions, some tough calls, a lot of complexities to understand, and very few answers to be found. So at that time, of course, it all looks very, you know, very risky, and you find yourself, asking the question, did I make the right choice?
Mhm.
You are faced with a lot of doubts. And obviously, with a lot of in house counsel roles, there is no perfect playbook,
Right.
right? It's not like an appeals process in court that, okay, first it is this court, and then it is this court, and then it is that court, and you can lay out a strategy. You have to go with your gut feeling. You have to read a lot. You have to read beyond your preferred range, right? You have to learn a lot about business, and you have to be willing to make mistakes, willing to fail. And you also have to face a lot of doubters. That's the most important part of it. Because there will be times when, while making that transition, you will be tasked with a business decision
Mhm.
or a quasi business decision, and you will feel that maybe it's not your job to make the decision. But at the end of the day, if your goal is, let's say, if you want to be general counsel, group general counsel, or you want to be a leader especially, then these are the difficult calls that you have to make. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but either way, you're always learning. So you need oceans of patience. B, you need to take a couple of risks.
Mhm.
You need to forgive yourself when those risks don't work out for you. You need to pivot when those risks don't need to work out for you. Three, you need to read a lot. You really, really need to be on top of things as far as business is concerned, concepts are concerned, abbreviations are concerned, changes are concerned, business model is concerned, lingo is concerned, right? The way there is legal language, the similarly we have financial language as well, right? And you should not limit yourself to only learning just the legal stuff. You should also
Mhm.
learn the financial stuff, the business stuff, so that business people can come to you, have a conversation with you, or trust you with those decisions. And lastly, yes, it's a journey. So you are evolving. You will get a lot of things right, and you will also get a couple of things which are wrong. But irrespective, I mean, onwards and upwards from there.
Wow, beautiful. What happens when one of the decisions which you took from your gut doesn't go the way it was planned to go? How do you
Yeah.
how do you survive from there? How do you swim out of that situation?
Yes, that can happen. That can happen very easily. Things can always go south, and as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it just may be that you've informed everyone, you've done your homework, you're working with the best lawyers, you know, and you think you just had your day in court, but eventually, when you get the order, or eventually when the transaction doesn't sail through, or your management doesn't see eye to eye with you, it's your neck on the line, and you have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that that is the case every single day. That has happened. There's no question about it. That has happened, and the only way to, actually to mitigate that is to own up to it,
Mhm.
right? So it was your call from the get go. It was your call from the beginning. It didn't turn out the way it did. Most of the times, I would say in such a situation, it's not the end. It scarcely ever is. It rarely ever is. Of course, the first impulsive reaction will be that, oh my God, the sky is going to fall and this is it. There's no
Right.
turning back. But once you get past all those initial feelings, once you can see past that drama, you'll realize that there are a lot of options available for you. And I think it was one of those philosophers who said that, I think it was Aristotle, in fact, who said that law is reason free from passion, right? So you have to put your reasoning hat on and not your emotional hat. So that's how you should function by default.
Lovely, lovely. Ah, I'm enjoying the conversation already, Anindya, and there are so many aspects which you can touch upon. So, as a general counsel, help me understand when you entered into this space from your banking finance industry to the e-com and now at Eureka. What were your assumptions in the beginning that okay, the role is going to be like this, I will be doing so and so, and versus what you're doing today? Were your assumptions right before you entering? If not, what has changed, and what's the situation today?
That is absolutely a fantastic question. A very, very again, a very philosophical question. But if I can just turn anecdotal for a bit, the so things are different when you look from the outside in, and they can be completely 180 degrees different when you look from the inside out.
Mhm,
So the general counsel's position has really evolved over the last decade, the last half of the decade especially. It's one thing to aspire to hold this decision to this title, but the responsibility that comes with the title is quite something else. And obviously, you will make a lot of assumptions that the general counsel is supposed to be like this, it functions like this,
yeah.
they write like this is their decision-making matrix, these are the qualifications that they need to have, these are the subjects on which they need to be a master on. But there is also a lot of stuff which absolutely, you're not prepared for. And one of those things will be making the hard calls, the tough calls, the calls that nobody wants to make, the calls that will come your way, assuming responsibility in situations where no one else is willing to take ownership or accountability, uh, taking the fall for your team when things go the wrong way.
Mhm,
Um, and it's always a constant mentoring process because, of course, you will need a team to function. You're only as good as your team. But also the fact that right now, if even if things are kosher, things can go south very, very quickly. So you will always have to keep a vigilant eye out for what is around the bend. And what I mean by that is you think you have executed the perfect playbook, but you could still be outsmarted by your opponent. You think you've done all the research, but there is still something that could go wrong. And we've seen that very recently with the real money gaming industry,
yeah.
of which I had the fortune to be a part of for a while in my career. Things like that, which you just can't, sense or get a sight on out of the bend, but nevertheless, you'll have to be prepared for, you'll have to be accountable for. So it's a very, very vast playbook. The responsibility practically really never ends. You are always a doctor on call,
Mhm,
and you will need to have an elephantiac memory to be able to recall people, places, names, events, dates, section, legal paraphernalia, and whatnot, right? So it really helps if you have multi-sectoral experience
mhm,
so that, if you've worked in a plethora of sectors, plethora of situations, you've worked across different boards and different geographies, lived in different places, and have done all kinds of work, especially at the grassroots level, it plays into your decision making. It gives you that much confidence that you are making the right decision. And even if you don't think you're making the right decision, it's important to convince your audience that yes, this is what seemingly is the right decision, but these are also the risks which we are taking where the decision could go wrong. Eventually, it will be your job to draw everybody to the concession, to the settlement table to create
mhm.
a consensus out of it. And like I just said, take responsibility for things when they go south.
Interesting. So you spoke about taking ownership and accountability as well. I want to understand, has it ever happened to you where you are in a room where everybody is saying yes and you are the only voice saying no?
That actually happens more often than not. That's one of the professional hazards of this trade. Over the years, I have learned the way to couch my no. So, in my earlier days, when I was obviously much younger and I didn't have as much gray hair as I do today, my no would be very outright. I would
Okay.
read the law in literal terms and there would be no business overlap. Today, thankfully, it's a much more holistic approach. It's a much more 360-degree approach. And I have learned over the years that, there is a way of approaching the situation. There is a way of saying both yes, and there is a way of saying no also.
Mhm.
Uh, but to to kind of make this an interesting answer to your question, and it's a very difficult answer to give to the business team, the one that you asked. They can still live with a yes or no. What they absolutely do not want to hear is a maybe. All
Okay.
right.
All right.
So you can say yes,
Mm-hmm.
they're happy to hear it. And you can say no. Again, they would be happy to hear it. Those are binary answers. But the minute you say maybe, that is when people start getting uncomfortable. So it's very, very important for you to do your research. It's very important for you to know, your audience. And it is extremely, extremely important for you to hold that inner conviction that the answer that you're giving is most likely the correct answer.
Wow. But it's also very difficult as a lawyer to give the binary answer on the face of it. I mean, we are habituated, or we are wired to say maybe to start with, right? Or depends for that matter. You can't be on the right side or the left side at the start itself. How do you excel that?
So, yes, you're absolutely right. This is almost like a mental chess game, and it will boil down to the people that you're speaking to, because some people will have a few questions, some people will have a lot of questions, and obviously there could be more than just one lawyer in the room as well,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Who would have a totally contrarian approach to whatever it is that you're suggesting. So this is where experience comes in, and this is where you have to lay the ground that yes, we would like to deal with an ideal scenario where it is a yes or no, go
Hmm.
no go. Law is black and white, but there are also situations where we deal with the gray area of law, where it's not really very clear, and that has happened in the past. So the way you can do that is you can give examples of what has happened with maybe your peers or competition or
Hmm.
different sectors over there, to build some context so that it's not just per se an academic discussion. Say, for example, if you are thinking or discussing of implementing a new compliance into the company, or taking a radically different approach to corporate governance, or taking a call in terms of, no, this is not what we are going to do, even if the law requires it, because our situation is different, and we might fall on afoul of the regulator and things like that, right? Which are, again, on the face of it, go
Hmm.
no go decisions. But like I said, depending on where you are operating from and the expectations foisted on you, it can get complicated, and most of the time it is complicated. It is never as simple as a yes or no answer. So you bring in that experience, you bring in that flavor, you do your research, you speak to a couple of other people, you understand and preempt some of the questions that may be asked in your answer itself, so that your answer, your discussion, and you're required to lead, answer some of the questions that people would have even otherwise. And then from there on, like I said, it's mostly about consensus building. And there will be quite a bit of back and forth before the organization aligns with your view, or you align with the organization's view.
All right. Either party gets convinced.
Yes, because without that, it really doesn't work. Everybody has to move in as a team, and they have to
Hmm.
move in one direction.
Wow. So when you joined in the in-house role, uh, was there a period where you had to actually manage people, understand them, get along with them, because they would consider you as an outsider, though you are working for them in their team, sitting in their premise, but for them it would be like this person always says no to everything. How did you navigate that situation and build that relationship and trust with the people around you?
I think that's the hardest part of any in-house counsel's job. And I think the even harder part of it is managing yourself,
Mhm.
because you'll be dealing with a lot of crisis that is not created by you, challenges which existed prior to your being in the organization or occupying that particular space. You will be dealing with truncated timelines, and you will also be dealing with overwhelming expectations.
Okay.
And it only gets worse the higher you go, right? So the large part of managing other people is actually more about managing yourself. I know it's very simplistic to say that you need to remain calm. I doubt anyone ever really does 10 out of 10, right? But you still need to make an attempt, because the last thing that the management wants is to see an antsy GC.
Okay.
If you start getting antsy, if you start losing confidence, if you start showing fear, that is not a good sign at all, because people came to you for a solution, right? It's like entering a room for a surgery and then the senior surgeon comes along and his hands are shaking. That can't be the case at all.
Right.
You need a surgeon with rock steady hands. So a large part of it is managing yourself. As far as managing other people is concerned, it happens through observation. It
Hmm.
happens through experience. Obviously, the C-suite that you will deal with as a GC or as a senior experienced professional will have their own expectations and will have their own set of queries. The grassroots people from whom you need to get the job done will behave very differently. The lawyers, the law firms that you deal with, the arbitrators that you deal with, the retired judges that you deal with will be on an absolutely different plane altogether. And a lot of your energy will go towards, trying to build this cohesive unit. The business will always see the business side of things. You will have to manage risk, business, law, timelines, uh, explaining the whole thing to everyone, and most importantly, after doing all this, convincing people for a huge budget, and after doing all this, pulling it off. You know,
Right.
it rarely ever happens that it goes that way, because obviously, as we all know, the cases in India get decided in decades. But when it does, it's a very huge feeling of accomplishment.
Mhm.
It'll boil down to your personal qualities more than the quality of education that you have or the degree that you hold from any particular law college. You will have to practically reinvent yourself every season, every sector, every company, every employer, and possibly even every situation.
Mhm. Wow. So basically, every situation, every new situation is teaching you something or the other and shaping you for the big future ahead.
Yes, you could say that. I mean, looking back, every situation has only prepared you for the next situation. So, yes, you're absolutely right.
Hmm. All right. So if I have to ask you, what is that one small habit or your mental model which you've been following, which has been helping you stay calm and also succeed in your role as a GC? What would that be?
I think the easy way to answer this question would be that in the past, if you've dealt with bigger problems, more complex issues, and you've hopefully survived them, subsided them, successfully emerged out of them, then the present situation is manageable. However, if you find yourself in a stage in your career when everything is new, overwhelming, my suggestion to people in that situation would be to reach out for help. See if you
Hmm.
can speak to a mentor, see if you can speak to a peer. It's very, very hard, challenging, if not impossible, to try and do everything by yourself. In today's world, we are all tempted to do that because of the technological advances that are being made. But that can mentally, emotionally, physically, professionally overwhelm you in no time. So if you're faced with a novel situation that you haven't encountered and you are feeling out of your depth, which happens quite a lot of times, reach out to someone. You may not always get a complete answer, and again, there is no perfect answer, but you will at least get a general sense of direction. You will gain some degree of confidence that what you're doing is right. You will figure out the areas which you don't know and now need to start knowing, right? And from there on, you will eventually every single day working on the problem, breaking it down, you'll come to a solution. So if I have to look back, I have been, and I'm sure we all have been there, doubted several times that the
Hmm.
decision that we are making is wrong, and we've been told to our faces that the decision that we've made is wrong. But eventually, when the decision turns out to be right after a couple of years of litigation or a couple of discussions or back and forth, people see your side of things, and it makes it easier for them to trust you the next time around. But obviously, reputation is not built overnight. It's a long, hard fought battle, and you have to constantly work at it every single day. And one thing that you have to keep in your mind, and this is where the mental model comes, is that you have to do what is right. You have to do what is right. You are not just a general counsel or a manager legal or an in-house counsel. You are also the conscious keeper of the company. You have to keep people honest and you have to keep people on the right path. If that means saying no, so be it. If that means being unpopular, so be it. As long as people see your vision, as long as people get your point, after a while, once the dust settles, that will make things easier the next time around. And obviously, the company and your own reputation will be, will be thanking you for it. But like I said, this does not happen overnight. The expectation is to turn it around overnight. But like I said, you have to constantly stick to your guns. You have to have that sense of belief that even when nobody else supports you, nobody else is backing you, this is what needs to be done. This is the right thing to do, even if it's the hard thing to do, the costly thing to be done. And you take it upon yourself and you try to deliver.
Nice. With so much of things happening around and in the day-to-day life, what keeps you up at night?
The things that I don't know.
Okay.
So there could be some new regulation in some state which has come up, which has not yet gotten my attention, and it could be something that deserves immediate attention, or it could be a contract, that we have seen 100 times, and we've tried to fix it, but eventually something got missed somewhere.
Hmm.
Or it could even be an email which has not been answered on time. There are a plethora of things, but eventually, like I said, I mean, I believe you have to be paranoid about it. I think it was someone who said that it's only the paranoid who survive. So you have to be paranoid about the fact that you've not missed something, you've not skipped something, and go back and reread, re-research, question your own decision at times, even when others don't. And thereafter, you will develop a sense of moral, legal, principle, business compass, that typically, will be your inner scorecard that yes, you did the right thing despite everything, and you're on the right track.
Hmm. Lovely, lovely. So, Anindya, tell me one thing. Since you have been part of this ecosystem for a longer time, what is that one thing which is still not done correctly, or there's a gap in this whole industry which should be fixed as early as possible? What would that be?
Pratt, my absolute immediate answer would be in this industry, people need to mentor people much more. It's one
Okay.
thing to come out of college with a legal education and a legal degree, and that
Hmm.
obviously should be the starting point. But once you enter the profession, whether as an in-house counsel or as an external lawyer, there is a lot that's going on. And as you aptly said, it's very, very dynamic. It would really, really be helpful if people could, mentor each other, without any consideration, without any asks, without any quid pro quo, because that's honestly the need of the hour. There's so much
Hmm.
talent out there. And like I said, you don't find all the answers in any particular playbook. So I think if that's one thing that I had to change, I would definitely change that part of it, the mentoring part of it.
Do
I
you
would
have a
try to
mentor?
foster a. I did not have a mentor for a very long period of time, but I took a chance to ask people to mentor me.
Hmm.
I went to people and said that I don't know X, Y, and Z. Please teach me. And you'll be surprised to know they did spend their time teaching me.
Wow.
It was just a question of me asking them to do that. And to be very honest with you, I still do that. If there is a subject that I am not familiar with, I reach out to someone who's very senior, maybe a law firm, or who's maybe a retired judge, or even someone on LinkedIn, and ask them that, can you mentor me? And Prank, you should know there are some people who mentor others for money. There are some people who mentor others just because they want to give back to society.
Wow.
So that bit is changing, and it's heartening to see that change, but we need more of it.
I think we should have a community of such people who are open to mentor others, because yes, you rightly said we need mentors. In fact, I was having conversation with Vaibhav yesterday, Vaibhav that we from Belspun, and he also echoed the same, that one thing I would like to change is get more mentors in this ecosystem, because there are none or very few, and it's very hard for people also to identify a mentor for themselves. So I think that there should be something done on that front. and people who are listening to this podcast, I'm sure if they reach out to you, you would be happy to mentor them as well.
No, absolutely. No questions asked. Certainly.
Nice, lovely. So tell me, Anindya, one thing. What are you most proud of in your life so far, professionally as well as personally?
Um, Personally, I guess would be the journey.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's very easy to fall into that trap to think that, you're doing great or you're doing okay or that you have achieved a certain degree of success. Because we live in such a dynamic world that, you will realize that there's so many more milestones to achieve. So it's very important to be aware of the fact and to keep repeating to yourself not to fall into that particular trap. That being said, it was kind of an uneven playing field. I was a first generation lawyer, so to speak, and having changed cities, changed sectors, worked in different companies with great teams, having been mentored, those kind of things. The journey is actually the reward more than anything else right now. So even when you have those doubts and you make those mistakes, just be grateful that you get to be on this journey because there are so many other people who do not have even that much of a chance.
Lovely. And what about the professional side of things?
On the
Proudest moment.
professional side of things, there will always be a challenge, and it will be more and more challenging. Um, what I have learned is that it's a people game, so
Mhm.
managing people is very, very important, and it's really, really hard to get that right. The way you are trying to size up someone, someone is trying to size up you. The way you're trying to create an environment of trust, confidence, comfort. Other people are also doing that. But then again, given the expectations, the complexities, the time, the resources, and the crunch and everything, you don't always get it right. So managing yourself in this whole situation is very, very important. Managing people is, I would say, today the most singular important thing. So whether it is hiring someone, whether it is mentoring someone, whether it is pointing out mistakes of your peers or your seniors or someone, you have to learn how to adopt that messaging. So you have to be versatile. You cannot be that binary. You cannot be that dry. You cannot be that black and white, right? So it's a learning experience. We are evolving every single day. And hopefully, I think today, in the Indian context, at least, Prank, I would say that there was this time when one would rue the opportunity to travel abroad and settle abroad and have that kind of a landscape to work with. Those opportunities are available today in India,
Mhm.
professionally speaking. You do not have to leave your country anymore to, get hold of those opportunities. So I think those are very, very exciting times. And obviously, on the technological side of things, uh, you know, I know this subject has been done to that, but the way we are seeing AI and the advent of AI and some of the changes, it's all very exciting. We're still trying to figure it out, and let's see where we land.
How bullish are you with the advent of AI, where we're talking about a lot of people are talking about AI replacing your junior associates, AI replacing your interns in the law firms and everything. What are your views about it?
I think that would be an oversimplification, very honestly. Someone with, let's say, 20 years of experience, someone with 15 years of experience, someone with 5 years of experience, overnight simpliciter being replaced by a bunch of algorithm, which as we all know is not perfect, would be really the wrong approach and the inhuman approach. Yes, AI does do a lot of things correct, but if we, falsely assume that I can now manage a 10-member team with a 5-member team, and the rest of the stuff will be done by AI. That would be the wrong approach. There is something called intuition,
Okay.
which no AI has. There is something called sixth sense. There is something called experience. There is something called gut feeling, which AI doesn't have. AI is, of course, good at a ton of things, but with any profession, if you think that AI can suddenly replace a doctor because it has a ton of data that can tell you whether your X-ray has come out right and your prescription is right or your diagnostic report is right or wrong would be oversimplifying things. AI still doesn't have the capability like a doctor to come and using the stethoscope figure out firsthand what is wrong with you even before the diagnosis begins, or for a lawyer to take a look at the whole thing and say through experience or sixth sense that this is the approach that we should take via this particular legislation and this particular documentation, and we should go ahead with this and we should not go ahead with that, which may again be against conventional wisdom. AI isn't there as yet. So while not to discount AI, it is doing a lot of things, but to simplicity say that we now have a Gen AI acting as a lawyer, I think we're not there yet.
Okay. Okay. And as your role as GC, when this all these AI things started popping up, and your teams must have started using it right away, what sort of guardrails or policies or information you have sent out to them saying that this is how you should use it, this is how you should not use it? What's your take on it, and where are we heading with
So,
this?
that's really interesting question because everybody has such an individualistic approach on
Mhm.
AI. Some people will simpliciter just copy en masse everything that AI spits out. Some people obviously will apply their mind and try to custom fit it for the solution at hand. And some people will be a little skeptical that whether this is actually right or wrong. I think it's the use case that matters a lot, Priyank. So if
Mhm.
you are looking at drafting a contract, bettering a contract, if you're looking at doing some legal research, those are great instances of AI where you can practically, with very bare minimum guardrails, you can actually use the final output. But at the same time, if you are trying to draft uh, a custom shareholding agreement or even a very basic document where the human input does not meet the typical training data that is there on AI, you can go wrong very easily. Also, if you are not using your experience, if that document doesn't contain your flavor, that advice doesn't contain your flavor, uh, what eventually happens is that you stop using your IQ. Then there is no point of you being the human being in the loop.
Okay.
The human always has to produce that, what should I say, using their sixth sense has to produce
Mhm.
that particular result, which AI can't because AI has not had the experience that you've had. So I think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most complex, AI is somewhere at a 4 or 5. We can use them for things which are medium to hard. But for the things which are really, really complicated, I think it's best if it's left to lawyers.
Lovely. Good to know. Hmm. So help me understand, Anindya, from your experience, how has innovation be playing a crucial role in technology first companies? And as a GC, what do you advise the technology first companies when it comes to innovation, IP, and protection, about all of that?
So there's a lot of room for innovation, and Prank, I can tell you, as far as India is concerned, we are far, far ahead than many of our Western counterparts on innovation. So whether it is contract lifecycle management, or whether it is an IPR detection tool, or whether it is litigation management, or whether it is a pure Gen AI tool which can be used for research and other miscellaneous purposes, we are far ahead of them. And I'm strongly in favor of innovation so that we can focus our IQ, our minds on the core job that is at hand, on solving
Mhm.
some of the really difficult problems, and also obviously in terms of meeting our deadlines. So I personally use 4 or 5 different softwares which are for very custom purposes. So we have one particular software for contract management, another software for IPR, another software for litigation management, another software for compliances, and then obviously one Gen AI tool. Obviously, not all of these softwares all speak to each other,
Mhm.
but if you know even at least 60-70% of the features of each of these softwares, you can get a lot done. But again, that doesn't mean that someone is getting replaced because suddenly there are new features and new softwares, right? Uh, because obviously, as I said, the intuitiveness still matters. The AI will produce a textbook solution, but the textbook solution does not apply in all situations. But I'm 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 a strong believer that innovation is the key for all of us uh, to progress in our individual careers, and I also believe that eventually all of us will pivot to being tech lawyers. And I'm really, really happy to tell you that in my experience, I have seen Indian law firms as well as Indian in-house lawyers adopt tech, experiment with tech, place their belief in tech much, much more than our Western counterparts.
Okay. Wow, that's good to know. That's good to know. So tell me, Anindya, something. If you were to join a startup today, what technology field of that particular startup would you choose to join, and why?
So, having been on the services side of things, I think I would probably choose something which has to do with services, but on the hardware side of things, not on the
Mhm.
software side of things. So,
Okay.
obviously, it's the GPUs on the hardware side of things which is driving the innovation, the growth, and the use of AI. So, obviously, I would, well, Frank, let me try to give you the non-diplomatic answer, the risky answer, which is what I think you're here for. I would take a chance. I would try to join a startup where you can marry AI with some real world practical application.
Mhm.
So if I look at many of the AI agents that we have today, the AI companies that we have today, all of them are great tools by and of themselves.
Right.
But can you really place them on top of a hardware? Can you really place them on top of any other regular BAU daily software application and then get results out of it? I don't think we have seen that yet. So I would join a startup that would, if such exists, who is actually attempting to do that actually.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, there are many, by the way, in this line. We have been working with a few as well. So yes, there are many in that line. Lovely. And how important is IP as part of a general counsel's portfolio?
It's extremely important. I mean, whatever else you're doing, you must have one eye focused on intellectual property. That's not just where the goodwill is created or the wealth is created or the value is created. It's practically the legacy of your company. So you absolutely have to keep an eye out for IP constantly. IP in India has evolved tremendously, and it's really, really heartening to know that the awareness in respect of the best practices that is happening in one part of the country is now being adopted in another part of the country. So hopefully over a time, this whole thing will become much more holistic and much more non-academic. We know the
Mhm.
academic side of it is really, we're very strong over there. But as far as the enforcement is concerned, as far as the prosecution is concerned, or let's just say as far as the results are concerned, we should start seeing something which is much more standard, the kind of orders that we get from different kind of
Yeah.
courts, the time that it takes to get to that kind of a stage in a particular jurisdiction, and those kind of things, or overall the approach that lawyers take practicing in different parts of the country with respect to a particular IP matter. I think we're seeing a lot of homogeneity over there, which was earlier not the case.
Mhm. Nice. If you were to give an advice to your younger self, a 21-year-old in India today, what would that?
I would have probably told him to start much earlier.
Hmm.
Yeah. I would have probably told him to start at the age of maybe 21, as opposed to starting out at 24. Unfortunately, we can't go back in time, but yes, all of the risks that one has shied away from, all of the doubts that one had, all of the worst case scenarios that you can imagine, right? It only helps you as you go along. So take that shot, take that chance, make that call, take the plunge. It doesn't really matter, because eventually, you will find a way irrespective of what. So I would have started that journey much, much earlier.
Okay. Is there any event or incidents in your life where you should have taken the risk, but you could not, and you still feel that I should have done that? Uh, is that something?
But both yes and no, because you see, if I had said yes to everything,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have really gone anywhere. So learning the art to say no, or rather, I would say even mastering that without losing the relationship, without rubbing the person the wrong way is very, very important. But yes, I won't call them regrets, but yes, there were definitely, those if but maybe scenarios that if only I had, or maybe if I had, but if I had, that's not something you really get over, in a permanent state, but you learn to make peace with it over a period of time.
Nice, lovely. So, Anindya, before we close, I just want to understand from you what is that one thing which keeps you going every single day?
The same thing that started this journey, the hunger for knowledge.
Mhm.
So one of the things that my father asked me when I started studying the law, my father was in the government service, is that he asked me, "What is the change that you see in yourself?" Right.
Okay.
And obviously, fathers have a lot of expectations from their sons. So I said that one of the things that I see in terms of change is, this thirst for information, this thirst for knowledge. It's not enough to know only so much. There's still much more to know. And it is not enough to know only what you've read just once. You have to go back and read it again. You have to reinterpret it again. You will find yourself in the same situation many different times with different results, right? So I would say the quest or the hunger for knowledge is what keeps me in the game.
Lovely. Awesome. Very, very beautiful answer, Anindya. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you, and
Same here.
you did not shy away from sharing all the secrets and all the wisdom with the people. And I'm really delighted to have you here, talking to you. I would have loved it to meet you in person and shot this maybe in person as well. I'm sure that would have been a different level altogether. But having you here, sharing unfiltered wisdom is really profound. Thank you so much for giving us your time and attention to this.
Thank you, Prank. It's been a pleasure for me as well.
Awesome, lovely.